He did not stop the truck because he trusted strangers. He stopped because the girl in the road looked too calm to be afraid. That was what scared him the most. Eli Mercer saw her standing at the edge of the gravel lane near the old Miller property just after sunrise, pale blue skin in the morning light, long silver hair moving in the wind like silk, and eyes so bright they looked like they were catching the sky inside them. No shoes. No bag. No phone. No car. No blood. No panic. Just a small tilt of her head as if she had been waiting for him. Eli hit the brakes so hard the toolbox behind his seat slammed forward and his coffee spilled over his hand. He swore under his breath, grabbed a rag, and looked again. She was still there. A young woman, maybe early 20s by human standards if she was human at all, standing beside the ditch like a piece of moonlight had wandered into farm country and forgotten how to leave. There was a boy with her too. That made no sense. The child stood half a step behind her, smiling at nothing, striped shirt, dusty knees, sunlight on his hair, like he had been playing in the yard all morning. Eli knew every kid within 10 miles. He had never seen this one before. He rolled down the window and called out, voice rough from too little sleep. "Hey, are you hurt?" The girl turned her face toward him fully, and for one strange second he felt a pressure behind his eyes, not pain, just a sudden ringing silence, like the world had leaned in to listen. Then she spoke in careful English, soft and clear. "We are not hurt, Eli Mercer." His hand froze on the steering wheel. He had not told her his name. The boy looked at him and grinned wider, then pointed at the truck and laughed as if they had all met before. Eli stepped out slowly, boots crunching gravel, heart thudding hard enough to shake his breath. "How do you know my name?" The girl blinked once, almost curious, then looked at his face, not his eyes, his face, as if reading something written under the skin. "You asked that when you were 9 years old too," she said, "when the rain came through the roof and your mother hid the bucket behind the stove so you would not feel ashamed when the neighbor visited." Eli stopped moving. The air left his lungs in one cold rush. He had never told anyone that. Not his ex-wife. Not the therapist he quit after 2 sessions. Not even Noah. Especially not Noah. "The bucket was blue," the girl said quietly, "with one cracked handle, and your mother said we will call it a music bowl because brave houses sing in storms." Eli staggered back one step, eyes wide, throat locked tight. His mother had been dead for 6 years. Nobody knew those words. Nobody. "Who are you?" The boy flinched at Eli shouting, then the girl lifted one hand just a little and the child relaxed instantly, smiling again. Her voice stayed calm, but there was something old inside it now, something deeper than her face. "If I answer too quickly, you will run," she said, "and if you run, they will find us before I can explain why your son is still alive." Eli felt the world tilt under his boots. "My son is dead." The word tore out of him so hard it hurt. The trees seemed to go still. The girl looked at him with a sadness so raw and human that it made him angrier. "No," she whispered, "he was taken through a breach signal, preserved in transit, and hidden to draw me out. I found him 6 hours ago. I brought him home to you because I saw the memory of the river and knew you were the right father." Eli could not breathe. He looked at the boy again. The hair. The ears. The tiny scar above the eyebrow from falling off the porch rail at age 4. His knees almost gave out. "Noah." The child smiled and lifted both arms. "Daddy." Eli crossed the distance in a broken rush and dropped to his knees, hands shaking so hard he could barely touch him, afraid the child would vanish like smoke, but Noah was warm, solid, sun-warm, alive, and laughing through Eli's tears. Eli held him so tightly the boy squeaked and kissed his cheek and patted his shoulder the same way he used to when Eli cried after the funeral and thought Noah was asleep. Dad, you are squishing me. Eli laughed and sobbed at once, forehead pressed to the child's hair, whole body shaking. He did not know how long he stayed like that. When he finally looked up, the blue-skinned girl was watching the tree line, not the reunion, as if she was listening to sounds no human ear could hear. Who did this? Eli asked, voice shredded. Who are they? She looked back at him and for the first time he saw fear in her. The people I escaped, she said, and they are already close. Bring the boy inside, lock every door, and if I tell you to run, you run even if I am screaming. Eli should have called the sheriff. He should have called the state police. He should have called every number in his phone and begged the world to make sense. Instead he scooped Noah into his arms, grabbed the girl by the wrist without thinking, and ran toward the farmhouse his father had built, because nothing had made sense since the day his son disappeared, and this impossible morning was the first thing that had felt like hope. Inside, the house smelled like pine cleaner and old coffee and dust warmed by sun through the curtains. Noah looked around like a kid returning from summer camp, excited by everything, not confused enough for what should have happened to him. Eli set him down and checked him for bruises, cuts, anything. Noah kept talking in fast little bursts. The light room was loud, there was a lady with a face like glass, and Luma came and the bad men got sleepy, and then we walked and she said I had a house with a red barn, and we found you. Eli turned slowly to the girl. Luma. Is that your name? She nodded once. Luma of Seraph. Then she looked toward the kitchen window and whispered. Down. Eli dropped by instinct and dragged Noah with him just as the window exploded inward in a spray of glass and white splinters. Something bright cut across the room and burned a black line through the refrigerator door. Noah screamed. Eli grabbed the boy and rolled behind the kitchen island, heart hammering, ears ringing. Luma did not duck. She stepped into the open space with impossible stillness, one hand raised, glowing cyan lines flaring under her skin from throat to fingertips. A second blast struck the air in front of her and stopped. Stopped. It hung there like a bead of white fire trapped in clear ice, trembling inches from her palm. Outside, voices shouted in a language that sounded like metal striking water. Luma's jaw tightened. 3 scouts, she said. No, 4, one above the roofline. How do you know that? Eli shouted. She closed her hand and the trapped bolt folded into itself and vanished with a hiss. Because they are thinking very loudly. Another shot tore through the wall near the staircase. Plaster burst over Eli's shoulders. Noah was crying hard now, face buried in Eli's shirt. Dad, I do not like the loud men. I know, buddy, I know, Eli said, voice shaking, keep your eyes closed, do not move. Luma looked back at Eli, and in that chaos she sounded almost gentle. You have hunting rifles. In the hall closet and truck rack, Eli said automatically. Take the old one from the closet, she said, the metal is simple and they read advanced charge signatures first. Eli stared at her one stunned second, then laughed once in disbelief because apparently this was his morning now, aliens in his kitchen and tactical advice from a glowing stranger. He shoved Noah under the heavy oak table and dragged a blanket over the side so the boy would not see the broken glass. Stay here and do not come out unless I say your name, Eli said, looking him dead in the eye. Noah nodded, tears spilling, lower lip trembling. Eli sprinted low through the hallway as blasts punched holes in the walls and framed photos crashed to the floor. His hand hit the closet knob, found the old lever action, and suddenly he was 12 years old again, standing beside his father at the fence line, hearing the rules in a stern voice. Breathe first, aim second, panic kills before bullets do. A wave of grief hit him so hard his vision blurred. Then another memory rose with it, Noah at 5, tiny hands on the rifle stock at the range, earmuffs too big, laughing after hitting a tin can and shouting I got it Dad I got it. Eli swallowed the pain and chambered around. When he came back, Luma was standing in the center of the kitchen with both arms out, eyes bright as welding arcs, every shard of broken glass hanging around her in a spinning halo. The back door blew off its hinges. A tall figure in dark segmented armor rushed in, face covered by a smooth silver mask, weapon lifting toward the table where Noah hid. Eli fired. The first shot hit the intruder in the shoulder and spun him sideways into the counter. The second shattered the mask edge. The thing underneath was not a face Eli could understand, pale and jointed and wrong, eyes like black polished stones. The scout screamed in that metal water language and raised the weapon again. Luma moved her fingers. The floating glass storm shot forward all at once. 100 shards slammed into the scout's suit seams, neck joints, visor gap, and the creature dropped hard, weapon skidding across the tile. Eli stared in shock, rifle still up. Luma turned toward the ceiling. Up. Eli fired through the corner above the pantry window on pure instinct. A dark shape on the roof jerked and rolled off the shingles with a heavy thud outside. Luma exhaled sharply and swayed. The glow under her skin dimmed for a moment. "You can do that and it tires you," Eli said. "I can do much more," she whispered, "but if I do, their command ship will lock on the surge and burn this entire property." The words landed like ice in Eli's gut. Entire property meant the neighboring farms too. People he had known all his life. Luma knelt by the table and touched the floor, not Noah, just the wood. Her voice went soft again. "Noah, can you sing the bucket song for me?" Eli looked at her, stunned. Noah sniffled, then in a tiny shaking voice began to sing off-key. "Brave houses sing in storms, brave houses sing in storms." Eli turned away and covered his mouth with his hand because he could not let himself break now. He understood then that she had not just stolen a memory from him. She had found the one thing inside him that still obeyed love before fear. The shooting stopped. That silence was worse. Luma's head tilted, listening. "They are repositioning," she said, "and something larger is landing beyond the tree line." Eli checked the rifle, then looked around the ruined kitchen, the cracked family photos on the floor, the child under the table, the impossible woman glowing faintly in his house. "Tell me the truth now," he said, every word hard. "Who are you and why is my son mixed up in this?" Luma stood slowly, and there was no time left, so she gave him the whole blade instead of the soft edge. "I am the daughter of the Sereth archive speaker," she said. "Our people carry memory as power, not in machines, in living minds. Our enemies call us thieves because we can hear what minds hide. They hunted my family to control our gift. They killed my mother, took our cities, and learned I could open the locked memories in human neural patterns more safely than in my own kind." Eli stared at her, trying to keep up. "Why humans?" "Because your minds are noisy but resilient," she said, "and because you dream in stories. Stories bind fragmented recall. Your son was taken from a cluster of missing children to bait me into revealing myself during a transfer route. They expected I would choose one child to save and flee. They did not expect I would find the father whose grief was louder than their engines." Eli's eyes burned. "You read me and decided I was useful." Luma met his stare without flinching. "I read you and decided you would die before handing him over," she said, "and I was right." A deep vibration rolled through the floorboards. Dust trembled from the ceiling. Noah whimpered under the table. The larger thing had arrived. Eli forced himself to think. Sheriff Station was 12 minutes away on good roads. Nobody would reach them in time. Cell signal out here was bad on the best days. He had one farmhouse, one rifle, a traumatized child, and an alien woman who could stop plasma with her hand but not without bringing a ship down on the county. He looked at Luma and made a decision so fast it surprised even him. "There is a storm cellar under the barn," he said, "old stone walls, lead-lined freezer in the corner from when my dad stored game. If they scan for energy and electronics we can mask Noah there." Luma's eyes widened just a little. Lead disrupts some field reeds. Your father was clever. He was stubborn, Eli said, then glanced toward the wall as another heavy thump shook the windows, and I guess I am too. He crawled to Noah, held his face gently, and spoke low and steady. Buddy, I need you to do a brave job for me, okay? Noah nodded, tears drying, trying so hard to be brave it hurt to watch. We are going to play tunnel game in the barn, Eli said, and no matter what you hear, you stay with Luma unless I tell you different. Noah grabbed Eli's shirt. You come too. Eli kissed his forehead. I am right behind you. They moved through the back mudroom while smoke drifted through the kitchen from scorched cabinets. Outside, the morning had turned unreal. A black craft the size of a grain silo hovered low beyond the trees, no wings, no visible engine, just a humming pressure that made the leaves shiver and the dogs in distant farms howl. 3 armored scouts moved between trunks, weapons raised, careful now after the kitchen bloodbath. Luma crouched and touched the ground again, then pointed left. 2 there, 1 behind the water tank, 1 circling wide to cut us off. Eli handed Noah to her and shouldered the rifle. Take him to the cellar door, wait for my shout. Luma caught his arm before he moved, fingers cold, eyes fierce. Eli Mercer, if you die, he may remember your fear more than your love. He looked at her, chest heaving, and said the only thing he could. Then I better make sure he remembers me standing. He broke into a run toward the tractor shed, boots kicking dust, drawing fire immediately. White bolts snapped past him, one burning through the sleeve of his shirt and searing his upper arm. He slammed into the side of the shed, gritted his teeth, and fired twice through the slats where he saw movement. A cry answered from the trees. He moved again, low and fast, using the rusted combine as cover, breath ragged, blood warm on his arm. Another scout rushed from the far side of the barn and Eli barely turned in time, the creature raising a blade baton that crackled blue. Eli swung the rifle like a bat. Wood smashed against armor, the scout stumbled, and Eli drove his shoulder into its chest with every ounce of grief and rage he had stored for 6 empty years. They crashed into the dirt. The baton skidded away, sizzling through dry grass. The scout was stronger than it looked, claws digging into Eli's jacket, black eyes inches from his face behind a cracked mask. Eli saw his own reflection in the visor and for 1 second he looked like a man already dead. Then Noah's voice rang from the barn door. Dad! That sound lit something ancient in Eli. He headbutted the scout hard enough to split his own brow, grabbed a fist-sized rock, and brought it down once, twice, 3 times until the creature went still. He rolled off, gasping, hands shaking. Across the yard he saw Luma by the cellar hatch with Noah behind her, cyan lines blazing brighter now, arms spread as 2 scouts advanced from opposite sides. They were not firing. They were using a net device, a lattice of white light stretching between them. Trying to take her alive. Luma's face tightened with concentration, but Eli could see she was fading. He ran toward them, shouting with every bit of air in his lungs. Hey! The scouts turned. Luma looked at him and suddenly he heard her voice inside his head for the first time, clear as if she stood in his chest. Do not look at the net, shoot the left wrist joint, then close your eyes. Eli did not question it. He fired at the left scout's wrist. The weapon jerked, the net collapsed sideways and flared. He slammed his eyes shut and a wave of pressure hit like thunder inside his skull. For a heartbeat he saw images that were not his. Burning towers under violet clouds. Children hidden beneath glowing roots. Luma kneeling beside a silver table, reaching for a small human hand in the dark. Noah asleep in a capsule of light, thumb tucked under chin just like always. Then silence. When Eli opened his eyes, both scouts were on the ground convulsing, smoke rising from their helmets. Luma had dropped to one knee, nose bleeding blue. Noah was clutching her shoulder, crying. Eli reached them, hauled the cellar hatch open, and half-carried half-guided them down the narrow stairs into cool stone darkness. He slammed the hatch shut above them and dropped the crossbar into place. The cellar smelled like earth and old apples and rust. Noah clung to him with one arm and to Luma with the other, refusing to choose. Good, Eli thought through the shaking in his body, do not choose, not yet. Luma slid down against the wall, breathing hard. I broke silence protocol, she said faintly, they know exactly what I am now. Eli ripped a sleeve from an old flannel hanging on a hook and pressed it to the burn on his arm, then tore another strip and handed it to her for her nose. You saved my son twice before breakfast, he said, you get to break a few protocols. A weak laugh escaped her, surprised by itself. Above them, the humming grew louder. Dust sifted from the ceiling stones. Eli looked up. Can they get in? Yes, Luma said, after some time, unless. Unless what? Unless you trust me enough to let me use the memory gate on this place. Eli frowned. What does that mean? She looked at him, then at Noah, then back to him. It means I can hide us inside your strongest remembered pattern of this land, she said. Scanners will read echo noise instead of life signs, but to build it I need your permission to enter a memory you do not want touched. Eli swallowed. He knew exactly which memory she meant before she said it. The river. The day Noah vanished. His hands curled into fists. Noah looked up at him, confused and sleepy now from shock. Dad. Eli knelt in front of him, pressed both hands to the boy's cheeks, and looked at the face he thought he would never touch again. He turned to Luma. If this keeps him alive, you can see all of it. Luma lifted her hand and stopped inches from Eli's forehead, not touching. Her voice softened to a whisper that seemed to widen the dark around them. Tell me what the water sounded like. Eli closed his eyes. At first nothing came but panic. Then the memory broke open. Summer afternoon. River low and brown-green over stones. Noah laughing from the bank and throwing pebbles. Dragonflies over reeds. The smell of sun on wet wood. The exact sound of Noah shouting "Look Dad, big one" when he saw a fish turn in the shallows. Then the silence after. The wrong silence. The kind that swallows all birds at once. Eli's breath hitched hard. He felt Luma's mind moving near his, careful, reverent, not stealing, not tearing, just listening. More, she whispered. Eli gave her more. The frantic running. The ripped skin on his hands from grabbing thorn brush. The sheriff lights at dusk. His wife screaming at him in the hospital parking lot that he should have watched him better. The nights after, the empty bed, the striped shirt folded in a drawer because he could not wash away the river smell. The blue bucket in the storm from his childhood, because grief had stacked inside grief until he could no longer tell one ache from another. Luma inhaled sharply, tears filling her bright eyes though she had not lived a second of it. Then she opened her hand. The cellar changed. Not physically, not fully, but the air rippled and deepened, and suddenly Eli could hear river water where there was none, could smell summer reeds, could feel the emotional shape of home wrapped around the stone walls like a shield. Noah smiled through exhaustion and leaned against him. It sounds like your story, Dad. Eli kissed his hair. Yeah, buddy, it does. Above them, boots hammered across the barn floor. Metal screamed against wood as something heavy cut into the hatch. Noah flinched, but the rippling air around them shimmered and the noise seemed to slide away, confused, as if the cellar no longer agreed on where it was. Luma's voice was strained. They can still breach by force, but now they cannot lock target, they will search manually. Eli checked the rifle, only a few rounds left. Then we make the time count. Minutes stretched. Above, the invaders tore through the barn, then the yard, then returned. Twice Eli thought the hatch would rip free. Twice the pressure field shimmered and their scans passed over the hidden pocket. Noah finally fell asleep with his head in Eli's lap and one hand tangled in Luma's pale fingers. The sight hit Eli in a place words could not reach. A dead child returned. An alien refugee bleeding on his cellar floor. And in the middle of it a small hand choosing both of them as safe. At some point the humming outside changed pitch. Luma looked up sharply. "They are leaving the ground team," she whispered. "No, they are arguing with command. No, wait." She went very still. "There is another ship." "Friend or enemy?" Eli asked. She closed her eyes, listening with whatever sense she carried beyond sound. "Neither," she said, then a breath later, "Human." Eli stared at her. "That is impossible." She gave him a tired sideways look that almost became a smile. "This has not been a very possible day." A blast shook the barn, bigger than any before, followed by shouting, then the sharp crack of gunfire, real gunfire, human gunfire, multiple calibers. Eli's heart jumped. "Deputies." "No," Luma said, "too coordinated, military response, they tracked the surge after all." The gunfire intensified, then faded into scattered shots, then silence. A heavy knock sounded on the hatch. Human voice, amplified. "Occupants below, this is United States Air Force Containment Unit, respond if you are alive." Eli and Luma locked eyes. Containment was not exactly rescue. The voice came again, calmer now. "We have a child life sign and 2 adult signatures, hostile craft disabled, repeat, hostile craft disabled. If there is a civilian named Eli Mercer inside, say your name now." Eli blinked in disbelief. "How do they know?" Luma exhaled slowly. "Because when I broke silence protocol, everyone listening heard me." Eli looked down at Noah asleep in his lap, then at the rifle in his hands, then at Luma, pale and exhausted but still watching him like his choice mattered. It did matter. Maybe more than any choice in his life. He had spent 6 years living under a hole in the world that no answer could fill. Now the answer sat bleeding beside him, and it was bigger and stranger and more dangerous than grief had ever imagined. But it had brought his son home. He drew one long breath and called up through the hatch. "This is Eli Mercer, my son is alive, and the woman with us is not your prisoner." Silence above. Then the same voice, quieter. "Understood, Mr. Mercer, open when ready, we will stand down weapons at the door." Eli almost laughed at the words when nothing about this was ready. He shifted carefully, waking Noah. "Buddy," he whispered, "I need your brave face one more time." Noah rubbed his eyes, looked at the dark cellar, then at Luma, then at Eli. "Are the loud men gone?" Eli pressed his forehead to Noah's. "Yeah, the loud men are gone." Noah nodded solemnly, then looked at Luma and asked the question Eli had been afraid to ask. "Is she staying?" Luma looked away first. "My people are scattered," she said softly, "and yours may decide I am a threat." Noah frowned like adults were being stupid again. "You brought me home. That means you are friend." Simple. Perfect. True. Eli stood, joints screaming, and held out his hand to Luma. "Come on," he said, "whatever happens next, you do not walk into it alone." She looked at his hand for a long second, as if no one had offered her one without wanting something in return for a very long time. Then she took it. Cold fingers. Steady grip. The cyan lines under her skin glowed faintly in the dark like dawn trying to begin. Eli lifted the hatch. Bright light spilled down the steps. Armed figures waited outside at a distance just as promised, rifles lowered, medics behind them, smoke rising beyond the barn where the black craft lay broken in the field. And for the first time in 6 years, Eli walked upward carrying not just grief, but a future he had not asked for and could no longer refuse. Noah in one arm, rifle in the other, Luma at his side. The world staring at all three of them. He stepped into the sunlight and did not bow his head. Because brave houses sing in storms. And this one was still singing.